AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON. This is Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. My guest today is Client Manager Jake Hutt from Rejuv Medical. Good morning, Jake. Thanks for joining me.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
So today we're talking about the 5 components of fitness. Okay, what are the 5 components of fitness?
Sure. There's a variety of aspects of health and wellness that I think people tend to neglect. The 5 components being strength training, cardiovascular training, nutrition, supplementation, and then accountability or coaching in that regard.
Okay, well, let's start off with strength, since that was the first one you mentioned, so strength training. What is involved in strength training, and should people of all ages do some of this?
For sure. I think that it's something that can be overlooked depending on what your goals may be. We see a lot of people that are looking to lose weight. That's probably the most common goal that people have. And I think people just always assume that you just need to eat well and run on the treadmill and you're going to lose weight. And I think that a more efficient way to lose weight and keep it off is putting a little bit more of an emphasis on strength training and growing lean muscle mass so that way your body's metabolism is strong and healthy. Your body is just physically strong. You're going to fight off injuries, sickness, and it all kind of boils down to your strength. Your muscle is really what controls a lot of this aspects of health and wellness. So if you're neglecting that, you're just doing, say, cardiovascular training, you may struggle to hit your goals or be able to maintain them.
How does having lean muscle mass affect your metabolism?
So on average, they say that typically about 1 pound of every lean muscle that you've got in excess can burn about 50 calories a day. And I know that that doesn't really seem like very much because 50 calories is, 1 or 2 bites of food nowadays. But really, if you got to think long term that if you can get somebody to gain, let's just say 3 pounds of extra lean muscle, that's 150 calories a day that you're going to be able to burn without doing anything, just by being at work, by sleeping, by doing, your daily routine. That there's going to be that extra 150 calories that are going to burn off throughout the day. And again, I know that's not that many, but if you think about a month worth of 150 calories, that's 4,500 calories extra you're going to burn that month by just having extra muscle on your body. And there's only about 3,500 calories to a pound of fat. So if you are just doing some simple math, that if you can gain a few extra pounds of muscle, you should be losing about a pound a month. Eventually, your metabolism may adjust to that. But, if you've got some short-term goals for some weight loss, then that's probably a good area that you should focus on to make sure that your body's being as efficient as it can be, because you're only going to be, active or in the gym, a couple hours a week. And it's really an uphill battle if that's all you're really focusing on is the time that you're actually in the gym.
On average, how long would it take someone to be able to gain 3 pounds of muscle mass?
It would depend on, I guess, your dedication level. If you're starting from scratch, I think that you'd be able to attain that fairly quickly within, a month or two, if not sooner. If you're somebody that's a little bit more established and you've had experience with strength training in the past, that may take a little bit longer. And then that stems into and transitions into another, topic that we're going to talk about, which is your nutrition. That plays a big factor in your ability to be able to do that. You can lift weights all you want, but if you don't have the nutrition to match that, you're going to struggle.
So if you're trying to build that muscle, it's pretty important to have somebody, especially if you've never done it before, have someone who is a specialist, someone who's an expert like yourself that can kind of guide them on the way, right? Because you don't want setbacks.
Correct. And you're going to hit a plateau really, really quickly. We're creatures of habit. We're so habitual by nature that even if you've got a good routine, eventually, with how your metabolism can adjust to what you do on a daily basis, you're going to hit up what they call that plateau relatively quickly. So we usually say after about every 3 months, you should mix up your routines, or just making sure that the program that you're on doesn't ever repeat itself, which is why I think classes nowadays are so popular, because then you don't have to worry about mixing it up, that there's going to be an instructor or a trainer that's going to do that for you.
So as far as starting somebody out, if someone comes to you and they're wanting to start a strength training program, how do you begin with them?
Well, we got to figure out what their ultimate goals really are, and then what their time frame is and dedication level is to that goal. If somebody is going to come in 2 days a week versus 4 days a week, that's gonna dictate how we want to approach that, and maybe the length of their workouts or the intensity of their workouts. their age, their gender, their medical history. That all plays a big factor in it. We don't want to treat everybody the same, and what works for me might not work for you. And just because your friend did this program or that program and it worked really well for them, it doesn't always mean that it's going to work well for you. So it's going to take time. I can't sit down with anybody and just give them the perfect plan in a day or even really within a month. It's going to take us some trial and error because everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's body responds a little bit differently. So having patience, I think, is very key, and understanding that it took us years and years and years to get to this point that you are now addressing it, that it's not going to happen overnight, not even within a few months, typically, if we're trying to do it the right way.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a quick fix, it's probably not going to happen.
No, and even if you do find that quick fix, the likelihood of you being able to maintain that result that you got is very unlikely.
My guest today is Client Manager Jake Hutt from Rejuv Medical. Today talking about the 5 components of fitness. It's Health Matters and WJON, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. More to come, coming up next. AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON, it's Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. My guest today is Client Manager Jake Hutt from Rejuv Medical. Today talking about the 5 components of fitness. Moving on to the next one on the list, cardiovascular health. So cardio, that means running, biking, doing things to get that heart rate going, right?
I'm glad you kind of said it that way. I get that a lot, that people always just assume when we're talking about cardiovascular training, that they're thinking we're talking about a treadmill. They're thinking we're talking about, running. Cardio doesn't mean treadmill. Cardio is talking about your heart and your heart rate. And you can achieve a cardiovascular workout in a variety of different ways. You could be doing your strength training in more of a cardiovascular setting, and kind of a two birds, one stone approach. So when we're talking about cardio, we're talking about getting your heart rate up and finding what we call your target heart rate. And your target heart rate is based on what your goal is. If you're trying to work on more of a cardiovascular endurance, you want to be able to be active longer, run a 5K, or be an athlete, and play a game for 60 minutes, then your heart rate's going to dictate some of those things, and how you want to train for it. If you're trying to lose weight, which again is probably the most common goal for most people, there's a certain heart rate that you want to be at. So that heart rate is around 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. And for the listeners, if you want to try to figure out what your target heart rate is, for women, it's 226 beats per minute minus your age. And then what that gives you is a rough idea of what your maximum heart rate should be in beats per minute. And then you would just multiply that by about 65%. And that number that you get, that beats per minute, is the heart rate that you would like to be at as long as you can, to try to have your body burning calories from body fat, because your body can burn calories from a variety of different sources. It can burn calories from the foods you eat. It can burn calories from your body fat. It can burn calories from muscle. And that's something that happens a little bit more often with people that are overtraining. If you do too much cardio, your body can burn muscle as a source of energy. And then, yes, you're going to lose weight, but where is that weight really coming from? So that's another misconception. If the only thing you're measuring is by stepping on a scale and seeing that number go down, there may be something that's being overlooked or setting you up for maybe a plateau or failure in the future, and you're going to, take a step back in the long run. So we always want to make sure that people are monitoring their heart rate as much as they can, whether that's through our MyZone system or a Fitbit or whatever platform you're trying to track these things on. But it does play a big factor, so it can be overlooked. So a lot of people will just jump on the treadmill, cross their fingers, and hope it works. And that's not a very efficient plan to be on when we're talking about cardiovascular training.
What's really a tough one, I think the point you were touching on in regards to, you don't want to burn muscle. You don't want to burn that off. How do you know, how do you get to that point and not, you want to burn the fat that you want to get rid of, but yet not burn the muscle? How do you know what line you shouldn't cross?
Yeah, I call it the FIT principle, FITT. It stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. It's how you're going to balance what type of cardio regimen you want to be on. So the F in the FIT principle is frequency. Is how often do you need to do cardio to hit whatever your goal is. Now, if your goal is to lose weight, you might be doing a cardiovascular workout, or some version of that every time you exercise. Or maybe not. Maybe you're trying to gain muscle, where you might not be doing as much cardiovascular training as you are strength training. And then the intensity, like I talked about, your heart rate. Do you know what heart rate you really need to be at so that way you don't burn muscle as energy and that you're burning it from fat, or you're not just burning up the sugars that are in your pancreas? And then timing. So how long do you need to do cardio for you to not hit that point? Typically, for most people, timing is a big issue. Most people, when they do cardiovascular training, they start with cardio and then they go lift weights. It's actually very counterproductive for most people that are trying to lose weight. You should do the bulk of your cardiovascular training towards the end of your workout. That way, you don't need to do as much cardio. You probably only need to do 15 to 20 minutes as opposed to the half hour that you're doing right now, but that's just because you're doing it at the beginning of your workout. It's trying to balance how your metabolism works. And then the last T in that acronym is type, is what type of cardio are you going to do? If you do the same thing every time, which is very common, I'm a kind of a hypocrite in that regard as well. I do a lot of treadmill. You need to mix it up as much as you can. So if you did the treadmill today, you're done with that. Tomorrow you're going to do the bike. The next day you're going to do the stair climber or whatever it may be. Just making sure that you're creating muscle confusion so that way your metabolism is constantly being stimulated. So there's a lot that needs to go into it versus just jumping on the treadmill and just hoping that it's going to work.
Yeah, I think that's great insight because I think you're like you said. I mean, a lot of people are creatures of habit. You're going to show up, you're going to spend time on the bike or the treadmill, and that's going to be your source of cardio. But that's not good for your metabolism to do it that way.
Correct. Yeah, your basal metabolic rate is very adjustable, or it can adapt to what you do to it very easily. So when I see people that hit that plateau, they wonder, they feel like they're doing more and more and more, but really all they're doing is the same thing. They're just adding more time to it, and that's typically not going to be enough to get you over a plateau. And then you're just setting yourself up for failure in the future because now your metabolism has adjusted to that type of training that you're doing, that eventually you're probably going to end up going backwards and getting discouraged or putting some weight back on. And then if that happens, you may start to regress or give up or, slack a little bit.
My guest today is client manager Jake Hutt from Rejuv Medical. Today talking about the 5 components of fitness. More to come on Health Matters on WJON after this. AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON, it's Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. My guest today is client manager Jake Hutt from Rejuv Medical. Today talking about the 5 components of fitness. Okay, so we're going to lump a couple of them together here. Nutrition and supplementation. It makes sense to go hand in hand. So Jake, tell me about the nutrition aspects of the components of fitness.
Yeah, so nutrition, I think it goes without saying, but everybody knows that eating well is very important. And I don't need to explain what healthy food is to anybody. I think it's kind of common sense that we know what is and isn't healthy for us. But it's just trying to find that balance. And I think a lot of people try to offset some of these bad decisions with their nutrition plan by finding maybe like a fad diet. And I get the question a lot of, what's the best diet to be on? Is it the keto diet, paleo, intermittent fasting? Is it the shakes? Is it this or that? And I really don't think it's any one of them. I think it's whatever works for you, but I really would always want to encourage somebody to practice something that they can do long term. And if the plan that you're on, you don't think you can do for the rest of your life, you're practicing something in an inefficient way. And I would always recommend eat healthy food very often. I think that's the easiest way to do it. It's the 5 small meal a day plan. If you want to look at it like that, that's probably, an easy way to look at it. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Obviously that doesn't fit for everybody, but in general, that's a great way to start. And then we can try to fill in from there. What I see very often when it comes to nutrition, the problem is if you are doing the 3 square meal a day, say breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Imagine like a pyramid, right? The top of the pyramid is going to be your breakfast, lunch is in the middle, and then dinner is at the bottom, where dinner is that big portion, right? And it's very counterproductive to how your metabolism works. If you were to flip that upside down, breakfast would be your biggest meal of the day, which is why they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, because you have all day to utilize those nutrients and to burn off those calories. So most people who are skipping breakfast and they have a lunch and then they save their big meat and potatoes dinner, that big meal for the end of the day, those are the people that tend to struggle with their weight. So if you can kind of flip that on its side and just try to have a larger breakfast and make your dinners not so large, because your metabolism typically slows down towards the end of the day, and then you're eventually going to go to bed where your heart rate slows down, you're not going to be able to burn a lot of calories. So I would just always recommend somebody to have a larger breakfast and kind of taper their meals from there, but just making sure that they're eating very often. I think that that is a great way to start when you're trying to dial in your nutrition. Now, obviously, we can fill in some of those gaps with some of the supplementation aspects that we're talking about with that other component, making sure that you know where your gaps are. If you don't feel like you get enough fiber in your diet, which is something that's very common, you don't feel like you're getting enough protein or just nutrients in general, you don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, we can offset some of that by supplementing it with, multivitamins, protein powders, fiber supplements, things like that. So that's where I would start when it comes to nutrition.
So the supplements, would they be taken during mealtime? Do you take them different points of the day? What do you suggest?
Most supplements should be probably taken throughout the day because it can be tough on your stomach. Sometimes people have some gut sensitivity issues. I would always recommend taking them with food. When you take supplements with food, it slows down the absorption rate. So if you take your multivitamin on an empty stomach, it's going to pass right through your digestive tract really quickly, which is where a lot of nutrients are absorbed. Certain nutrients are absorbed in your stomach, your upper and lower intestines, throughout your digestive system. And if you're doing it on an empty stomach, you're going to be flushing it all right through. You're going to be wasting, a lot of those nutrients, wasting probably a lot of money at the same time too. So throughout the day with food, as what fits your lifestyle, what fits your routines, because just trying to throw in 4 or 5 different new supplements into your routine can be tough, and people can tend to slack when taking them.
Is there any negatives to taking supplements long term?
I guess over dependency is very common, is that people think that, I don't need to eat vegetables and fruits because I take my multivitamin and that's got everything I need, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. A lot of supplements are low quality, so what you're seeing on the label may or may not be in there because a lot of them aren't FDA regulated. But just because it's on the label doesn't mean your body absorbs a lot of that. And that's why when you look at these labels on some supplements, you're seeing hundreds, if not thousands of percents of certain nutrients for your daily value. They have to put that much in there because your body is so good at filtering a lot of it out. Your body filters the good just as much as it filters out the bad. So you need to make sure that you're doing everything you can to get that in a variety of different ways. Plus, a lot of supplements are highly processed. So with how your pH levels in your body work, you're really going to struggle to absorb a lot of the quality parts of certain nutrients.
Jake, I wanted to go back to what you were talking about earlier in regards to trying to have a bigger meal during breakfast and kind of slow down and maybe less to eat for dinner. I'm guessing you probably deal with clients oftentimes that say, I don't have as much time in the morning to go and have that bigger meal. How do you deal with a client that is not used to that kind of strategy?
Correct. Yep. And then that's right where we would probably jump to a supplementation option. So you can have a small breakfast if you can. So I'm not asking you to have this big, 5 eggs and whatever breakfast. But if we can get just something in the morning, because a lot of the clients we see have no breakfast, that their breakfast is a pot of coffee. So if we can just start with something small, a high fiber granola bar, protein bar, something like that, and then making sure that they're taking their vitamins if they can, and then a protein supplement tends to work really well, and it covers a lot of different holes in somebody's nutrition plan. You're typically going to make that with water or almond milk, coconut milk, something like that. You're going to get hydrated a little bit more because most people that we talk to that are struggling don't drink enough water. They're not hydrated enough. So let's get more hydration in them in the morning. Let's supplement some of these nutrients with, say a multivitamin. That's a vague answer for that, but that's the go-to for most people. And then like a protein powder if we have to. Most people, again, just like how they're dehydrated, don't get enough protein. Just because you eat 3 meals a day, you're probably still not getting enough protein. Usually it's about, it's different for everybody based on a variety of factors, but I'd say about 80 to 100 grams a day is probably what you're going to want to try to get to. And if you really take a look at it and you journal your food, I'll bet you that most of the people listening are probably around 50 to 60 grams a day on average. So making sure that you're getting as much protein in will probably benefit you to get to whatever health and wellness or fitness goal that you've got.
My guest today is Jake Hutt, Client Manager, Rejuv Medical. Today talking about the 5 components of fitness. It's Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. Back to wrap it up next. AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON. My guest today is Client Manager Jake Hutt, Rejuv Medical. Today talking about the 5 components of fitness. Okay, getting to the last one, accountability. And without this, you probably can't succeed with the other ones, right? Because you have to be accountable for what you're doing.
Correct. Yeah, most people like they get really motivated at the beginning, but then again, like we talked about earlier, that we're such creatures of habit that just because you're practicing a healthy lifestyle doesn't always mean that you're going to be able to maintain that or you're going to maintain the same results that you get. I see a lot of people that, lose a lot of weight really quickly. When you're starting from square one, and you're stimulating your metabolism as much as hopefully we are, you're probably going to lose weight or gain muscle probably really quickly, and that motivates you, but eventually you're going to hit a wall and a plateau, and that may make you struggle. So we need to find ways to get through some of those things, or avoid some of those plateaus before they happen. And it all kind of stems from accountability, muscle confusion, just making sure that we're doing as much as we can to do different things. And it's so like we talked about with all these different components, most people just do one at a time, where I just do cardio and I eat well, but they don't do strength training. Or I take my supplements and I lift weights and I do a little cardio, but I really don't know what I'm doing. It's things like that. It's where you need to integrate all these aspects of health and wellness to making sure that you are getting the results that you can. And it all comes from having somebody that's a professional be able to guide you through that process. So it's having some humility, understanding that we don't know everything about all this, that I know I need to eat well and exercise, but how do I really do that? And there's somebody that can probably help you with that. And that's our role here at Rejuv. And whether that's doing personal training or doing group classes or boot camps, there's a variety of ways that we can do that to try to avoid some of these plateaus that you may run into.
As far as accountability, is it also beneficial, not just having a professional like you and others at Rejuv helping people along? Is it helpful to have a buddy, somebody else that you're going to things with that will maybe help with that accountability?
So glad you brought that up. That's so true. So some people don't want to get a trainer. That's fine. Or you don't want to work out in groups. That's fine. I get that. Everybody's got their own different style, but you need to find some way to be held accountable. And the buddy system is a great way to do that, is having somebody around you that will kind of motivate you. When we're doing, workouts, if I'm working out by myself, it's so easy for me to slack. I was supposed to do 10 reps, I did 8. I was supposed to do 4 sets, I did 3. Or should I move on to the next workout or should I just go walk on the treadmill? If you've got somebody around you and you guys have a plan in place, you're not going to want to deviate from that plan because you guys are both on the same mindset, you both have the same plan, and deviating from that is harder when you're with somebody. So that buddy system, having a workout partner, is a great way to make sure that you're doing everything you can, especially if you've got somebody that's got similar goals. And that's another thing struggle with, is your workout partner is significantly different from you in a variety of ways: male versus female, older versus younger, bigger versus smaller. There's a variety of ways that we can achieve whatever your goals may be. So making sure that you find somebody that's got similar goals, similar lifestyles, that will probably expedite some of your results. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be that way. I think that accountability and having a buddy to work out with in any regard, no matter what your goals are, is going to be beneficial. But if you have the option to find somebody that's got similar goals, those are something or someone you'd want to try to pursue.
How about the honesty part of it? Certainly people, they have good intentions, like you said at the beginning, but are people going to be honest with you? And how can you weed through that in case someone is, because you're not around them 100, every day, 7 days a week, to determine what they're doing. How important is that?
It's extremely important. And the beauty of where we are right now as a society and how much technology we have at our disposal is a blessing. There's an app for everything nowadays. So if we've got somebody that we know they're going to struggle with their, say, nutrition or their time away from their trainer or whatever it may be, there's ways to track everything now. So if somebody can be humble and have that humility and understand that they're going to struggle and they know that and they need a way to be held accountable, there's a variety of ways we can do it. We can do a food log. We can track their workouts, their times. There's the system that we've got here is called MyZone, which tracks their heart rate and their workouts and how many calories they've been burning. So we can try to have more of a scientific monitoring system behind it to making sure that we're on pace to hit their goals. And if we're struggling, we can see that and we can try to offset some of that and kind of pick up the slack in a variety of different ways. So I would say technology is a great thing that we can lean on nowadays.
If people want to start their own plan and they need some assistance, what do you suggest they do in regards to contacting Rejuv?
You can call us anytime. Our phone number is 320-217-8480. But you can also just go to rejuvmedical.com, or even just swing in, ask for myself, Jake, Jason, or Shauna. Any one of the three of us can help you out. Consultations are free. Just come in and let us see how we can help you.
Jake, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. I appreciate it.
That's Jake Hutt, client manager, Rejuv Medical, talking about the 5 components of fitness. Find out more, go to rejuvmedical.com. This has been Health Matters on WJON. We return next week at this time with another one.